like to call to order the Charter Township of Chesterfield regular Township Board meeting for Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 at 7 p.m. to order. Could we all stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance? Deputy Nizza, would you please call the roll tonight?
Supervisor Kersten. Here. Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Demink.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
And Trustee Vosper.
Here.
Clerk Berry, absent tonight? Yes. You will be taking her place as deputy. Item 4, approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Trustee Demink, supported by Treasurer Elliott. Deputy Nizza, call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
And Trustee Vosper.
Aye.
Item 5, presentations. We have 3 of them tonight. The first will be to administer the oath of office to a new police officer. Welcome to Chesterfield Township. Director Bassett, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So real briefly, I just want to talk about one piece. So our newest officer here, Jordyn Swinkowski, is a local kid who went to anchor-based schools, who worked with our school officer at the time, Amanda DePape, and talked about different options. And Amanda talked to her about our, at the time, newly formed cadet program. She then, fast forward a couple months, she goes through the process and becomes one of our first cadets that we had. Move forward, we then send her to the academy, and now we fast forward today. This is exactly what, when we sat down with the township supervisor, that we were looking at when we developed the cadet program. An opportunity to take a look at maybe a group who hadn't traditionally looked at it, wasn't sure, but that we can spend time with them, they can spend time with us, and make sure that this is the career for them. And I'm very confident to say that Jordyn's going to be an excellent officer, and I'm excited to have her sworn in today. So with that, we can walk up to the front and make this official.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of police officer in and for the Township of Chesterfield, County of Macomb, and State of Michigan, according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
Welcome aboard and congratulations. We have 2 other presentations tonight. Mr. Sonnenberg.
Good evening. We wanted to do a brief update on the renovation to the police station project and also the main office. We're going to start off with the police station. What you see in front of you is a simple rendering. There's a photo I took of the existing police station above, and then a rendering of the proposed scheme below. And you'll see as I go through this presentation, there's a lot of details that we'll discuss. And these details will all be, we're planned to go forward as is, but we will, once we go out to bid, the budget will drive the project. So once we go out to bid in January with this project, we might come back, we will come back to the board, and we're gonna discuss those budgets and those items that we're gonna talk through today and again several times in the future as we go forward with this project. We're just really here today telling you where we're at this far. So going over that lower rendering, the details you really can't see but that are most important to our officers are there's some additional security details. In front of dispatch, you'll see there's some bollard planters that we're going to place in front of dispatch. They're kind of left of the flagpole. To the right, you'll notice on that lower drawing that there's a brick wall that we're going to install behind there. I'll show you in the next slide. There's a small area for dispatch to come outside. There's a security gate that we're going to put, a perimeter fence that we're going to put around the parking lot halfway around the building. But I just wanted to share the front of the building is not really going to change that dramatically except for the potential staining of the brick. The next slide we have is a site overview, kind of the same details I wanted to share. You'll see in that drawing to the left, that green circle represents the front of the building. There's not a whole lot of changes there except for the ballards, and there is, going back one time, there's a center emblem that we're proposing to put with the police logo on that blue pillar at the front of the building. That was one of the other things I forgot to mention, sorry. Going back to the site plan, that red line that you see on the outer perimeter of the building, that's our new security fence that will go around. There'll be gates, access gates on both sides. There's also a perimeter fence at the top. You'll see where that little box is, and then to the left of that, that's where our generator is. We're gonna run a fence across there as well. Moving over to the right, I apologize, the lighting's not real good, it's hard to show, but we kind of zoom in on that green area that you see. We put a new door in recently at dispatch, which will get you out to like a patio area, where we're gonna put some planters and some benches where our dispatchers, you know, you're in that room, and they're kind of the quarterbacks of our public safety team. We wanted to give them the option, the police staff wanted to give them the option to get outside, kind of get some fresh air, but be in a secure area. So that's that area, and that's inside of that gate. So that's the pretty part of the building. The rest of the building, as you well know, it's kind of industrial. We've got some brick and block, and the block on the outside of the building has been painted several times, and there's an adhesion issue. And when we were looking at this project originally, we knew that there was going to be concerns, and actually at planning months and months ago, we put $100,000 in the budget for structural issues, and those are some of the biggest issues I'm going to address today. So you can see, what I'm showing you right now is the east and the west elevation, and you can see in those lower two photos, I was just trying to show you the scaling of the paint and how it's flaking off the building. So it's allowed water to get into the block. It's just been an ongoing problem. We wanted to make sure, though, before we moved forward and just painted again, whatever we did was like a fix for years to come. So we wanted to make sure we addressed those structural issues. So I'm going to go over those issues now. When we looked at this building, it's a block building, an 8-inch block building. It goes up about 24 feet tall. Those red lines represent a beam that the block kind of sits into every 24 feet across the front of the building, both sides, east and west. You'll see on the bottom, it's hard to tell, but what I tried to show is, per the building print, it showed that there was grouted cells to the left, which is essentially a column in the brick that's filled with cement, and they put rebar in. And then there's also, to the right, you'll see that it shows in the print that there was 2 bond beams installed, which is a horizontal grouted block. Kind of holds the building together for lateral loads. Oh, sorry, Karen, we lost you. Sorry about that. So talking about the lateral loads, the concern was being an 8-inch block on that wall. Oh, sorry, Karen, can you zoom in? Can you zoom it in for me? Oh. So going back one more. Being that that's an 8-inch block on a 24-inch wall, it is undersized. It should be a 12-inch block. So our concern was right there, we're undersized on blocks. So we wanted to really make sure that those horizontal and vertical cavities were filled with cement. So in order to do that, you can't just verify it on the print. We went through a 2-step process to verify it. So it's hard to see, but on the left lower corner, I was trying to show you what a grouted cell looked like. Essentially, it's a column of concrete inside the block that's filled with concrete and rebar. What it does is, the way to find those is when you do a thermographic scan on the outside of the building, you'll be able to see where those are based on various components. But if you'll see, that yellow arrow kind of points over, when you see those highlighted yellow bands in the block, that'll tell you that those cells are grouted. So all it's really telling you is cells are grouted. It's not telling you how dense it is or anything like that. It's just giving you an idea. You can see where the green arrow is, and you'll see lots of green arrows in the next couple of slides. Those are where there's a discrepancy, whether the cell's not grouted all the way up or there's other issues. That picture, too, was just to kind of highlight from another structure what we're looking for. These next pictures are actually of the police station itself. You can see in these pictures, even though it's hard to tell now, we lack a lot of those yellow bands. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of grouted cells, if any. And the problem, too, is on the horizontal side, those bond beams, they're supposed to be one at 12 feet and one at 24 feet. We didn't find those as well. So then the next step is you go through with a simple, it sounds complicated, but it's pretty easy. You walk the building at about 6 feet, you do a ground penetrating radar, and it tells you if there's any bar or if we missed anything on our thermographic scan. Once again, that verified the same thing as our first finding, that we don't have a lot of structural items inside the block wall of that building. So while we were at it, we also took the opportunity when they were doing inside renovation to dispatch, they opened up one of the windows and we noticed one of the lintels was extremely rusted. So we figured now's a great opportunity. We had them come in and they did a test, each one of the lintels, just to make sure that the bearing capacity was still there. And thankfully, all those passed. So next, I know it's hard to see, but I'm going to kind of talk you through what we're proposing for a structural fix. Right now, after doing all the studies we have to date, we're still going to do some core samples, but to date, we're coming up with some engineering fixes to correct these lateral load issues. So what we're looking at right now is on those steel exposed beams, we're going to weld an additional 8x8 I-beam 12 inches off the ground and 12 inches from the top, almost to create a stip back, and then tie all those beams together. There's a really detailed drawing of that. I could go on and on and on, but I don't want everyone to fall asleep while I'm going through that process. But I'll be happy to share more details next time. Oh, sorry, Karen. So you can see in that drawing to the left, it basically just shows a simple summary on how we plan to correct some of these structural issues. We've been through several different concepts. We've talked to several different engineers, and we got it down to a really good idea. The reason why I'm going through a lot of this detail is because it's the one thing in our budget. Like I said, we budgeted $100,000. Right now, currently, our engineering estimates are coming back that we're going to spend about $150,000 doing this work. So I wanted to make sure I brought it to everyone's attention. Until we go out to bid, we won't have solid numbers. But I just wanted to make people aware that this is the one issue during our project that came up that is going to be could be a significant cost increase. So on our next slide, you can kind of see we have a ton of detail pages. You can't see those to the left. I apologize. There's a ton of details involved in this project. Partners have spent a lot of time. We're drilling down these details. We meet a couple times a week and go through these details, and we really fine-tune them. We're looking forward to going out to bid. This kind of shows you we're going to skin the building once we get the structural steel items 100% agreed upon and we go out to bid. We are also, during that process, we're going to put an air barrier on the exterior of the building, and then we're also going to apply a rigid insulation and then a steel skin, almost like a rain screen, over that building. So it would technically be good to a 30 to 40-year building once we do that. You won't have the rain infiltration. We'll have resolved the structural issues. The police department will be a solid structure moving forward for years to come. So this is the final rendering You can see up above is the west elevation, and now that is what it'll look like when it's finished. That is a steel paneled building or skin on the outside, and that's facing Town Center Drive. So the goal for us one day, or hopefully, is to kind of create a drive coming in from Town Center, and you'd be able to pull into the building that way. But we want to make sure it's visible, we want to make sure it's beautiful, and that's kind of the plan that we have to date. So I just wanted to bring some of the ongoing issues and discussions that we're having. I'll talk more about the bid process, because we'd like to take both of our projects, this one and our main office project, out to bid at the same time in January. Do you have any questions? So if there's no questions, like I said, we'll be back again, and we're going to go, I apologize if I'm bending your ear with details, but the details matter to us. I'm not good at the speaking part, but the details, we do take pride in our details when we do our projects. So the next item we have, oh, sorry.
Just a quick, sorry.
Trustee Jones.
Just a quick question. Could you forward the slide presentation that you have to us? I appreciate, you got a nice overview in the presentation, but there is a ton of detail in there, and I'd really like to see that. A lot of work went into that, and if you wouldn't mind just forwarding that, and maybe we could just email you or give you a call with questions in between board meetings.
Gladly.
Thank you.
When it goes out to bid, we'll make it public. Next one? Next one? Next presentation, Josh?
So thank you. So this one is our main office renovation. This is another project that we've been working on with partners along with the last project. As we've talked about here in the board, the driver behind this project is our HVAC here. The building was built in the early 90s. We got original equipment. We've been keeping it alive, but we're running, on some units, we're running at 50% capacity. So on that top picture, I just wanted to show that's one of our big rooftop units on the roof. There's 3 of them. We'll be talking about those. And then that lower picture is just an example of one of the other things we're trying to correct here. That lower picture is our octagon area behind you. And what you'll notice in that octagon area is the office really isn't, it's a perfect time to update. It's not really a professional office, and not only that, you'll notice that you don't see one window. They have like what's called an iron curtain. It's a metal office wall that goes around the whole perimeter of this office. You don't get any daylight in this office. The only way you get it is by opening these windows up by the board. So we're going to correct the interior office space because we have to tear apart a lot of the ceilings for HVAC. So I'm going to kind of run through the presentation. I'm going to be real heavy on the HVAC part of it because that's kind of related to one of our agenda items today. So you'll see here, this is just a bird's eye view of the building. The reason why I wanted to show this is you can see on the rooftop, you'll see those 4 large rectangles. Those are our current rooftop units. They're large. The one all the way to the bottom is number 1. That's the one that controls the senior center. That's relatively new. The other 3 are well beyond their useful life. When we were planning this, I want one more thing. That lower, it almost looks like a stone area that's wrapped around the outside of the octagon. That's our worst section of roof in the building. It's called a fully ballasted rubber roof. So what it means is there's a rubber roof with stone on top. We've been waiting to redo this roof until we do this HVAC project, and you'll see why. So this, again, just shows you how those units control and heat and cool our building. You got 3, we're going to focus on these 3 units. These 3 units control the area that we're going to be working in on this project. These 3 units, now this is looking inside the building. The 3 units that you see, same color codes, they tie to a network of devices inside the building. There's currently 52 VAV boxes, and what a VAV box is it's almost like a furnace in your house. It has a hot water coil, it has a fan, it kind of controls the air in each space. So you'll see those red dots that go along the perimeter. Those are all the VAV boxes on that outer wall. When we were looking at this, it didn't make a lot of sense to push all that air all the way around the building on that exterior curtain. So one of the ideas we came up with was to put smaller units when we replace that roof on the perimeter. So then not only can we control that outside air better and keep the interior temperatures, but a lot of times, to be honest with you, we're only using some of these offices. Like, let's say, for example, if someone comes in on the weekends, is doing work, or just simple things. We can control the temperature in these corners of the office based on the sun, the light loads. We just got better control, and it's more efficient. So this was an idea that we came up with, and this is part of the design that we'll talk about when we talk about the HVAC units. This next slide is just a really basic overview of how the departments are going to lay out when we go out to bid with our proposed remodel. So what we're talking about doing is we can go into the color codes the next time we go through the presentation, but our goal here is to have every department that the public touches at the octagon counter. In other words, if you come up for treasury, clerks, building, planning, assessing, all the public will be able to go to one counter instead of walking down to the building department and coming back. We're going to move all of the staff, our HR, our internal accounting, they're all going to move to the other side of the building where the building department is when we do this HVAC project. So we can go more into those details the next time we talk. There'll also be, when we do this, it'll be a phasing plan. We're going to do phase 1 will be the blue area that you see there. Phase 2 will be the yellow area. And phase 3 will be this room here. And this room here will really depend on when we get our budget numbers back, how much we can do in this room. Our goal here is to at least do paint, flooring. We're going to convert the room next to us into like a closed chamber. So when we have meetings, the public doesn't have to step out of the boardroom. They can just move into that closed chamber. That's why you'll see that little conference table next to all those chairs. This is kind of the overview of our renovation timeline. So you'll see the reason why our next agenda item was so important to get out in front of the bid packages. When we looked at all these other projects, there was a long lead time on HVAC items, anywhere from 24 months, or 24 weeks to 24 months. They were all over the map. So we wanted to make sure in order to get our project done successfully this year, we got our equipment out to bid, and we did that. Then we factored in the lead time for our equipment. As you can see, we plan to post our bid, our overall construction package for both the PD and the main office mid-January. That means we would go through and we would award those bids to a contractor mid-February, start the project between April and May. That would be our phase 1, and then our phase 2 would follow in August. So in order to be successful and make sure that the timeline works, that's why we went ahead and we did some initial work on our HVAC, and we're here today, or we'll talk about it with our first agenda item, why we'd like to move forward with that and how it relates to our project. It's just really the biggest thing for us significantly is the timing. Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble if anybody has any questions.
Any questions from the board? No questions from the board? Thank you very much, Josh. Appreciate it. Item 6, department reports. Are there any department reports? Trustee Domingue.
From Parks and Recs Leisure Services, registration is now open for the winter 2024. Community members can enjoy offerings including the annual Daddy-Daughter Dance, Easter breakfast, spring season baseball leagues, bus trips, and more. 949-0400 extension 4, or stop in to the office to learn more and get registered. Next, park rentals. Rentals for the 2024 park season begin in February. Brandenburg Park includes 1 indoor building and 4 open-air pavilions, perfect for a graduation party, family reunion, or birthday party. Visit parks.chesterfieldtownship.org to learn more about the available rental options through Parks and Rec. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Trustee Joseph.
Just a brief update. Trustee Anderson and I met with the public safety team, and our discussions included a lot of things about staffing and the cadet program, which Director Bassett touched on tonight, as we, kind of saw the benefits of exactly why we laid out the cadet program. And we currently have a really strong interest in our cadet program, and the cadet program being one of many ways that the public safety team is trying to look at more innovative ways to recruit and bring public safety team members on board. As you recall, we've had our officers and firefighters at the various academies in not only Macomb but also Oakland. This past Saturday, a relatively novel idea was walk-in interviews. And so the administrative team met with, I believe the number we had was 40 walk-in potential candidates, and of them 30 were eligible and conducted some interviews, and we were able to make connections with a lot of potential new additions to our public safety team. So great work by the administrative team, both police and fire, looking at ways to reach out to qualified candidates and bring them into Chesterfield. We did get an update on a couple of personnel matters which are not fully addressed, those involving both Officer LeBeau, who looks to be returning to our department on the dispatch team, and also some resolution with regard to Officer Baker and the MCOLS recertification. So we're hopeful to see both Officer LeBeau and Badge 55 back in some capacity here with our public safety team. We're very excited about that. The dispatch and sergeant area renovations, we hope to have the dispatch area fully completed by March. That seems to be moving very well. And the building updates that we were given, which Josh just gave a much more detailed, and it's clear that there's a lot of hard work going into making sure that the renovations there are done right, and with the officers and the public safety team in mind in terms of making sure it's operational. Chief Miller gave us an update, and we discussed in some detail potential plans for building, and as we've talked about as a board with the closure of the fire station a few years back, and recognizing that we anticipate more growth on the north end of our township, we have begun to explore what the building and fire station would look like when we get to that point. There's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done, not only with, how do we fund it and which way do we fund it, but also what is needed from an operational standpoint. So we were provided with some preliminary designs from AEW, and we're of course not to the point that we're in tremendous detail, but this is a multi-year kind of phased project, and so it's begun, and we have some overview of what that may look like. And Trustee Anderson, am I leaving anything out? I think that pretty much sums up. Yeah, the parking lot is. Well, we'll leave off the. Yeah, the public safety team obviously very, very involved in making sure that our citizens are protected, and they're doing an outstanding job, and making sure from a staffing standpoint. I wanted to also raise an issue that we talked about, and it came from one of our residents at the podium, that Mr. Kadich, when he came forward and asked about positions and what was the basis and what do we do in terms of justifying the number of officers for the size of our township. And so we discussed in great detail an exercise that we think is worthwhile to explore, and that is to answer the question in a very comprehensive way. And what is the data that's used to support the need for firefighters, police officers, MedStar, ambulance? And so looking at all of the variables, and obviously we can't compare ourselves and present a report that compares our township to every city in the county, but the one that keeps getting raised is Macomb Township. And so we talked a lot about the unique challenges associated with the police work that's done here versus Macomb Township, whether it be I-94, Gratiot, the geographical layout of our township, the industrial versus retail base. And so what we agreed upon was to sit down and work with a number of individuals to put together a very comprehensive plan that outlines why it is that we have the staffing needs that we have, and so We will begin that process, Mr. Kadich, and present that to the community so that people know what their SAD is really for and why. And as we look to bring on new staff, why that's important. And so that is something that I was grateful Director Bassett and Trustee Anderson and I will work together to bring that forward to not only the board but the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Just some comments from the supervisor's office. We were notified last week the Washington Road Baker New Haven Bridge at the Salt River will be completely dismantled beginning in January, and that project will continue through July. That road at Salt River will be completely shut down. We've had several meetings in the last couple of weeks with SMART in regards to bus service that services here in Chesterfield, and along with the Richmond-Lennox Connector service. Those conversations are continuing, will continue. Myself and some staff will make a trip in January to address the SMART board. And this is a much broader discussion throughout the county in regards to funding and how that money comes back to our residents in the term of the assessment that this township and other townships in the county are assessed for SMART services. But again, that's much detailed, a lot that goes into it. We've already begun our homework and our presentation to the SMART board. We're planning in sometime in January. I've sent to the board members communications that began from Commissioner Miller in regards to some legislation that has been presented at the state of Michigan in regards to service fees to water meters. I included the rebuttal memo that came back from Wayne and Oakland counties to the board members. And then there was a second rebuttal by Commissioner Miller this week. I've included it in a chain. We've engaged our lobbyists to begin to oppose that legislation. Unfortunately, I don't know if it may be a little bit too late. We're going to partner with anybody and everybody that has a grasp on that topic, the legislation that the governor is presenting, and I hope to challenge it in detail in the coming months. Unfortunately, the legislation has, state legislation has ended for the year. They'll be back after January. So we will continue to keep you updated on that. Again, that is it's going to be a controversial topic. Well, that being said, I will go to item 7, public comments. Public comments are on our agenda items only, 3 minutes for the public. The mic is open.
Hello. My name is Allison, and I live on Jefferson. I want to thank those responsible for bringing the Jefferson bike crossing concern to the board, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue. The bike path on Jefferson is an asset to the township. People enjoy it. However, the bike path crosses over from one side of Jefferson to the other at a very busy, staggered intersection. There's a church on the corner and an elementary school a block away. The bike path connects to multiple parks in the area. The Jefferson bike crossing is in need of a pedestrian signal for the safety and quality of life of residents and others who use the path in the area. Accidents are increasing in frequency and intensity. 2-car accidents have turned into 4 with injuries. Cars end up on the grass just feet from the walkway. There are not enough warning signals to alert drivers in this area. There's over a 2-mile stretch of road without traffic signals from Sugarbush to 23-Mile Road. The intersection is 4 lanes wide, and cars use the shoulder to pass. My husband saw a family trying to cross Jefferson with a stroller. Fear strikes our hearts when we see this happen. The family turned back after waiting a long time for traffic to clear. I've turned back too because there are times when I can't cross either due to the stream of traffic. It is difficult, especially when trying to walk a dog. I've heard the sound of the collisions in front of the church. I've seen the fear in a child's face about crossing. I felt the traffic breezing behind me at 45 miles an hour, even though I walk briskly across the street. What about our residents who cannot walk so quickly? Please consider a pedestrian signal for the safety of residents in our township and others who cross this path. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further comments from the public?
Paul Lafata. The purchase of the HVAC equipment from Johnson Control, about probably 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. This building's been uncomfortable and it's had environmental problems since I was elected to be treasurer. When I asked why we had some of these problems, I was told it was a Johnson Control system. And I used to work for Johnson Control Automotive, so I reached out to one of my vice presidents and I got a contact from Johnson Control Building Services. They're the largest building control services globally, not just in the United States. And they offered to do a survey, only they wanted to charge. We have studies done for water, we have studies done for dog park, we have studies done for everything. But somebody made a decision not to have that study. Ever since then, even Treasurer Elliott, when they approved the redesign of the building or whatever with partners and architects, says it's uncomfortable. Well, it's uncomfortable because of who's managing it, because we didn't fix what was correct. So now we're going to change the system from what it is right now to something it's not. And I'm not very confident that the township management can pull it off, because it hasn't in 6 years. I don't know if we're going in the right direction. And it's befuddling. Then go back to the police department. We paid AEW good money to have the building so it didn't leak. And then we paid again to have it, and it still leaks. And if it's not structurally sound, pull one of the blocks out, take it to testing services in Detroit, in Troy, and have it crush tested. Have the porosity checked. And then have an architectural load study done to find out if it's load bearing. If not, add some pilasters in there. But there's a lot of things you can do, and I'm not really confident that we're going to spend $4 million on this building and we're going to get a quality of event because of what's happened in the past. And we put out a lot of money that we haven't needed to. All the electricity during the wintertime for heaters under desk, and everybody's got one in their office. Building department just purchased one in the last bill run. And there's no guarantee that how the residents' money is going to be spent, and who's going to guarantee the quality of the event. And it's sad, because it's true. I have documents. And it's getting to be, when you misspend money for the tax dollars and it's spent inefficiently, the residents don't benefit. They get cheated.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments?
My name's Joe Kadich. I live on Sutton. My comments today go back to last meeting's agenda when we reviewed the 2024 budget. The only proud thing I could talk about then was I asked what was the, I thought, 3 grants that we had: the ARPA grant, the grant from Hertel, and supposedly a grant from McLean. Where were they going to be sent? Where were they showing up in the budget to be spent? You said when we go through the budget, you get into that. That didn't happen. However, I found out at the Parks and Rec meeting that Mr. DeMink forgot to include was that you were there and said that you were going to buy the school next January, and you had 4 votes from the board in your pocket, and that was going to cost $2.3 million.
Can you interrupt just for a minute? Can you speak to the agenda item for tonight?
This was an agenda item from last week
tonight.
that you failed to recognize and failed to.
I don't want to get into a back and forth.
I know you don't want to
speak
get into
tonight.
it, but you're going to have to address this.
Speak to
This all
tonight.
gets back to the fact that you've walked away what happened with the flood and all the problems during the sewer. You've done nothing. You didn't address anything of those problems. It's been
Mr.
3
Kadich,
months.
Mr. Kadich.
I had a ruined basement,
Mr. Kadich,
$35,000.
Mr. Kadich, just talk to the agenda items. I know,
And
Mr. Kadich, speak to the agenda items tonight. Okay? You can continue his time. You have any comments on tonight's? Do you have it, Mr.?
how would you like to address the
Mr.
fact
Supervisor,
that
Mr. Supervisor, just to be clear, this is the opportunity for the public to speak on tonight's agenda items.
Correct.
So, Mr.
Please,
Keatich, I think what he's trying to
Trustee
explain
Joseph,
to
I got this. Thank you, I appreciate it.
I just
got
don't
it.
want to see anybody get pepper sprayed, and I
Nobody-
don't know that we're explaining it properly, and I just want to make sure we're explaining
Don't
it
get
right.
exaggerated like you always do. Mr. Kadich, I'm going to ask you again. Focus on the agenda. That's your time to comment right now.
This
You want to
wasn't-
attack me in the
it does no
public
good
comments.
to focus on the agenda
Okay.
because you just ignore it and don't respond to any
Okay,
questions
do you have
anyway.
anything on the agenda tonight? Any further comments from the public?
John Speaker, Chesterfield Township. In regards to the agenda items, Agenda D, I have an issue with that. It is the renewal of the contract for Midwest Strategy. Again, when Midwest was brought into the township, I asked what bang for a dollar are the residents getting? And I would think that since the board's looking to do a 3-year renewal, Midwest tonight, that there would have been some sort of presentation given to why the residents' tax money should be used to bring Midwest back on. I know when it was first brought to the board, Supervisor Kersten said that there were issues with getting in touch with individuals in Lansing and trying to make the important contacts that the township needed for funding and any issues that arose in the township. And that individuals that worked at the township were, couldn't constantly make phone calls to try to get a hold of somebody. So if the board could address that, I would really appreciate it. It's a lot of money. I know we've got a good relationship here in this township with Senator Hertel. We've got a good relationship with Representative McLean. So, and, my understanding, those relationships were built on, the foundation of this township. So if somebody could address that, it would be greatly appreciated. And in regards to the HVAC system that Mr. LaFata was referring, anybody sitting on that board, Mr. LaFata, you're hired. I would be, this is your guy right here that knows the ins and outs of, HVACs, electrical, management, and getting the project done right the first time. So, he's the guy that I would have brought on immediately. So, he knows his stuff, he knows what he's talking about, and if the board would listen to one inkling of what the former treasurer says, we would be in a much better situation than we are today. But unfortunately, people don't listen, and his input I'm going to tell you, is very valuable. And people and businesses and industries pay big dollars to have an individual like that on staff. So I can't tell you, you know, his worth. I mean, you can't even put a price tag. That's how valuable Mr. LaFata is. But again, if you could touch upon that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public?
Good evening, Janice Young, 28714 Yorkshire. Items 10A and B, setting public hearings for next week. I didn't know what those were about. There's not really much information available, so I looked back at prior meetings to get a little education on it. There are tax abatements for companies up to 50% of the ad valorem property tax of the buildings. The board has 60 days from the day of the application that was filed to act, or it goes to the state, to the state tax commission for review, or we lose any input. Also, our assessing department must first review it to see if they meet the list of criteria, and then companies can receive a tax abatement for up to 12 years if they must sign an abatement agreement, which I guess means that they need to provide jobs for our community. So I know we're just looking to set this for next week, but the residents probably would like to know if there's any benefit to Chesterfield for allowing this, how many jobs it will provide. There are other questions the residents may have. I respectfully request that the public hearing be scheduled for the first meeting in January on the 9th, when more residents would be available to attend and participate. Item 10D for Midwest Strategy, they are a lobbyist firm. I don't know a lot about them, but I'd like to know, from what I could tell, it looks like we just started using them in June of 2022. So if that's the case, you know, how come the need for them now versus, you know, prior to that? Item 10E, the crosswalk on Jefferson, I'm 100% in agreement for pedestrian safety, although this seems like it could be an excessive and expensive crosswalk. I'm not sure what the details are of it because we're forced to speak on it before we know the details, so I don't know if this crosswalk will in fact stop traffic to allow people to cross the street. And the cost share agreement is actually a joke because the full cost of $50 grand plus annual maintenance will fall to Chesterfield residents to pay for. The county will pay for zero. The agreement states that if a traffic study is done in the future and it finds that the device is no longer warranted, that the county can remove it at our expense. Has a traffic study been done on Jefferson? And if so, how long ago? And what are the odds of one being done anytime soon? And then also, if it has to be removed, what would the removal cost actually be? Item 10F on the IT contract. I see that it now includes the township offices with Porter and Black for only an additional $50,000 a year. I'd like to know why we paid High Tech $463,000 for 2 years. That sounds like we were hemorrhaging IT money for 2 years. Who was paying attention to that? And I thought it was said that we have an IT person on staff, so I'd like to know what we pay that person as well. Item 10G, the street light at 21 in Briarfield. Kudos to the residents that asked for it and actually got it on the agenda. I'll be reaching out to all of our residents to put together a list of intersections that need a light, and I'll get those residents to submit requests. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Christopher Pierrick, Embassy Street. Just a couple, touch on a couple agenda items. The first one is item E, and that is the pedestrian crosswalk lighted sign. I'm 100% in favor of this. I think it's a great thing. The cars do travel fast down that stretch of the road. However, I'm just wondering why it would be on the township's dime. I questioned a traffic light elsewhere in the township and was told that traffic lights are the responsibility of the county, and so I would think this would fall under that same category. So if that's not the case, I'd like that to be explained when this item comes up for discussion. The other item I'd like to talk on is the item F is the IT support agreement for Porter and Black. I'm just curious to know if that went out for bid, and if not, why so? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments? Further comments?
Mike Rayner, Jack Grove Lane. Just to follow up to the lady who was mentioning about the difficulty crossing Jefferson. And this previous gentleman just pointed out that when it comes to lights, I suppose it's more of a county issue. But there's many, many comments about the intersection of 22 and Fairchild. This is a very bad one. I take that one very often. And it's almost a blind intersection. If you're trying to turn, if you're headed west on 22 and you want to turn actually in either direction, you can hardly see the northbound traffic on Fairchild before it may be too late. 22 and Fairchild, correct. Isn't Fairchild our border? All right, I guess the map, okay, that's fine. Smart we'll talk about later. One thing that may not come up, I just thought I'd mention it real quick, is I think we need one of those new crosswalks so that when people get off the bus to cross the street to go to work in that area, they don't walk down the corner because it's pretty far, so they now have those where you can have the lights up there, and it's safer because they jaywalk, and we've had accidents up there. So anyway, I do want to thank the whole issue of SMART finally coming to the forefront. And that's all on today's agendas. We'll cover a few things later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Further public comments? Further public comments? We'll move on to the consent agenda. On item 8, the consent agenda. Deputy Nizza.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any of these items is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Item A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of November 28th, 2023, and approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the finance company.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Support.
Trustee Vosberg, supported by Treasurer Elliott.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Demink. And Trustee, we got Joseph. Trustee Joseph.
No.
Item 9, public hearings. There are no public hearings scheduled. Item 10, the regular agenda. Deputy Nizza, when you're ready.
Set a public hearing for December 19th, 2023, to hear comments on an application for an Industrial Facilities Exemption Certificate, IFEC, submitted by RoboVent for the speculative building located on Sierra Drive, Chesterfield Township, Michigan, 48047.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Trustee Demink, supported by Supervisor Kersten. I'll just make some quick comments. This is just setting the public hearing. On the 19th, the applicant, along with the assessing department, will be here and will address the questions that were presented by the one of the residents. Deputy Nizza.
Trustee Demink. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
And Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Item 10B.
Item 10B, set a public hearing for December 19th, 2023, to hear comments on an application for an Industrial Facilities Exemption Certificate, IFEC, submitted by RoboVent for the tenant build-out located at Sierra Drive, Chesterfield, Michigan, 48047.
Trustee Demink. Supported by Trustee Vosberg. Again, the questions asked, these will be, there will be a public hearing set on the 19th for those answers. Deputy Nizza.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Item 10,
Treasurer Elliott.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Item 10C, when you're ready.
Item 10C, approve a recommendation to purchase mechanical units for the municipal office as outlined in RFP 2023-FO-77 under the Municipal Office Renovation Project Number 1039-2021 through Johnson Controls in the amount not to exceed $261,852.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Treasurer Elliott? This was covered in Mr. Sonnenberg's presentation. Josh, you want to address the bid process or
Sure.
how we landed here?
You are correct. Most of the details were covered in the presentation. That's why it kind of was HVAC heavy. We did go through obviously just want to touch, we did have a mechanical engineer involved during this process and partners as well. We did do interviews with the two proposals we had. We went through a detailed assessment. We got a recommendation letter from partners and from the engineering staff. So we went through all the processes. The reason why you'll see we had a lot of discussions in regards to controls moving forward is one of the biggest issues we have in this building, and that's where this was a good solution. You'll see the name of the vendor in there, but it's really, there's a product involved called BACnet. It's an open protocol item. I'm sorry.
I didn't hear what you said. You said there's a product involved
So
called?
there's a product spec in this bid sheet that is it's a BACnet device. What I mean by BACnet, just not to elaborate too much, is it's an open controls. So any vendor can put a control system in, and that's what we were looking for with this particular setup. It is by one vendor, but that vendor is putting a control system in that is open to all other processes and vendors. So we can have other communication software tap into those units. That was the problem we had with the controls in this building. They're locked down by one vendor, and not everybody has access. Just to kind of elaborate on that comment earlier.
Any further questions from the board? Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, Josh, could we stay on that issue? I know HVAC has been a big issue in the township, and you've been to the podium and presented, many times. And you, if I recall, and I don't know exactly the meeting that we were at, but the control system that you were talking about was when we go with a Johnson control system. I remember from a previous presentation you making a comment like they're top notch, but there's an exclusivity that's attached to them. So once you go in, you're now locked into a Johnson Controls sort of system, and you were limited in your ability to go outside of the Johnson Control, for various parts. That in essence you had to stay within the Johnson Control, and I'm wondering why is that a bad thing? In light of what we've experienced, what you've experienced firsthand, as you end up with an HVAC system that is sort of like Frankenstein in nature. Why not stick with what I think industry-wide is generally accepted as Johnson Control being, the pinnacle? Why not just stay there and keep our system completely contained within the Johnson Control parts and system?
I do agree with the gentleman's comments earlier. Johnson Controls, to give some history, was the be-all and end-all, the industry standard. They did everything. They came up with new systems, new software. They owned that software, and they controlled that software. And for years, when you did HVAC and you did the greatest controls, you used that company. The problem you had is elders caught up, and the internet and other devices came on board. Open protocol came more of a thing where you don't have to have certain licenses and pay certain fees to have those controls. You can have, in fact, most industry standard now is you spec an open protocol, which means you can have different control manufacturers make different controls for that same unit. And it opens it up to a variety of service techs and different people. The problem, for example, in this office, what they did years ago is they put in an updated Johnson Control software. Well, I can tell you right now, you can't get into that software unless you have a Johnson Controls tech come out and rework that software. We're locked out. We're flying blind. That's the problem. And we used to pay, when I started here 6 years ago, $1,800 a month approximately to have a vendor on hand to call when he needed to come in and make those adjustments. And I thought for the $1,800, when something breaks, we can fix it. So for the last 6 years, about 5.5, we didn't pay that vendor $1,800 a month. And then when I started, We also noticed that right when I started, there was a contractor that came in and they cleaned a bunch of ductwork. We spent about $12,000 cleaning ductwork. When we went in and looked at the units, and we did a detailed assessment, and the fact that this equipment is running speaks volumes to our team, that the equipment, as old as it is, with the lack of compressors and drives that we have, we're flying. We're not flying perfect, but we're staying here and the building is holding somewhat of a temp. Those units were so packed with a film on the radiators and the cooling fins, air couldn't even pass through the units. We actually called that vendor back when I started, had him come back out and re-scrub those units and clean them. So air started to pass through. So it's not just HVAC here. It's a multiple layered cake. HVAC is one component, the controls are one. Yes, but how you think about the future, you want to make sure that you're open enough where when different vendors can come in, they can service these units. You don't want to be locked into one vendor. That's our goal here. Yes, we are using that manufacturer, but in our bid specs, if you looked, we deliberately spec that open protocol. I hope that answered your question, sorry.
No, it does. I know you inherited, you came into this, you didn't start the system. You came in when things were, deeply broken and trying to make the best of it. I understand the limitations that you had because it was a closed system, but there's a part of me that really has a deep concern for, the employees. When we get it wrong, or when there is a closed system like we have now, and then we're relying only on, as you say, one vendor, somewhere along the way we kind of went away from that, and during previous presentations, you kind of left me with the impression that we had like a Frankenstein HVAC system, and that created a multitude of other problems. But if we're going to start it from square one, and I like the idea of going, for the safety of our employees with, it's the one area that I think we should look at staying with the industry leaders, and I like the idea of, not limiting our options, but staying with Johnson Controls all the way through. And I'm wondering, did you include that as an option in the presentation?
Great question. So when we order these units, it doesn't stop us. The controls will control, there'll still be some VAV boxes, there'll still be other units. How those units talk and communicate, we still can have a detailed, I can prepare some information for you and show you different options. Those doors aren't closed yet. All we're really ordering is the units, and we spec them with this backnet controller. You can still hook up Johnson Controls to this controller. You can hook up just about any controller. We just wanted to make sure going into this project, we had options. And where you get a lot of those options from, when you bring contractors to the table who bid on these projects, sometimes you get your best ideas from those contractors, the guys in the field that say, hey, listen, what do we do this, or what if we did that? So we like to leave those doors open until we close them at the final stage, and we're not there yet. So to your point, yes, we still have the option to go in several different directions, and that's what the goal was with this open protocol backnet system that's potentially in our units.
Appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Any further questions? A motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item 10C. Deputy Nizza.
Supervisor Kersten,
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott,
Aye.
Trustee Anderson,
Aye.
Trustee Demink,
Aye.
Trustee Joseph,
Aye.
and Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Thank you. Can I say one more thing? I'd like to send Mr. Mike Malone home. It's his wife's birthday. He's been here just in case we needed him. So I'd like to say thank you for all your help and send him on his way. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Item 10D.
10D, approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to enter into a 3-year contract with the Midwest Strategy Group, LLC, for governmental counseling services at a monthly retainer fee of $4,000 a month, term starting January 1st, 2024, and ending December 31st, 2026.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve the request. Is there any support? Support. Trustee Vosberg. I'll let there's a lot of information in your packet that we had provided. Karen, if you want to address this a little bit more in detail. And then we have Mr. Wright from Midwest here tonight also.
So I'll be short and brief because we do have Adam right here from Midwest. We've been approximately 2 years with Midwest. I'm just going to go very quickly on some of the things that they're helping us work on right now. They're helping us work with the clerk's department on the new complex election changes that are happening. They helped us get awarded a $5 million grant for our Chesterfield interceptor. They're currently working on getting another grant for that interceptor at the moment. They made their money back right away we made our money back right away when they negotiated with the DNR for Brandenburg Park. They are also working with the DNR on a grant with us currently. And having them ensures that our residents and our board has a voice in Lansing because they have all the information at their fingertips and they're there. They're attending all of the legislative sessions and making sure that we have a voice on different legislative items that are coming up. One of them in which Supervisor Kersten addressed earlier today about the water fees. We want to make sure that we have a voice and our residents don't incur those fees if we can, have a voice in that and persuade them not to vote that way. So I will turn it over to Adam West from Midwest Strategy.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy coming here to Chesterfield to speak to you and give you an update on what's going on in Lansing. First of all, I just want to remind Chesterfield that we're an extension of your township and of your staff. And so while I'm the lead person on your account, we do have 10 government relations professionals that we work as a team on many issues. And a few of us work on local government issues, and we do work as a team to make sure that we're doing the best for all of our clients that we represent. I want to talk a little bit about the political landscape in Lansing because it's changed a little. As we know, the Democrats took over the legislature beginning in January and have pushed their agenda forward. And they've gotten a lot accomplished that the governor has set forth for them to accomplish. The political landscape now has changed a bit. There were two of the Democrats that ran for office, the office of mayor in their individual communities, the communities of Westland and Warren, and they were both successful in that. And so what that's done in the Michigan House of Representatives is it's brought a tie for the number of Republicans and Democrats that are in the legislature. So there are now 54 Democrats and 54 Republicans in the Michigan House. So House rules mean that Joe Tate will still be Speaker of the House, and the committees will stay the same. But there are special elections that have been called by the governor to fill these seats, and those will take place on January 30th and on April 16th. Now, these are heavily Democratic seats, and we expect Democrats to win, and the Democrats' majority to go back to 56-54, but that won't take place until probably sometime in mid-April after that final election takes place. So it's a little bit of an interesting scenario in Lansing because the House will be able to operate as normal. They'll be able to have committee hearings, and they'll be able to do everything that they could before. It's just getting consensus on the House floor for votes could be difficult. So we don't expect a whole lot to happen on the House floor until the Democrats have their 56-54 majority back. Another issue that will could impact the Michigan Senate is Congressman Dan Kildee has decided that he will not seek re-election to Congress. What that does is it brings up an opportunity for many people to run for that seat. And there are several people that have announced that they are interested in running. One of the individuals that we are speculating that has interest in running is Senator Kristen McDonald-Rivet. She is from the Bay City area. Why that is so consequential for the Senate is that if she were successful in her bid, if she does run for Congress, that would bring the Democrats, she would have to vacate that if she won Congress, and she would vacate her state Senate seat, which would then bring the Democrats' majority from 20 to 18 to 19-18. There would have to be a special election called in that seat, and that was one of the hottest contested races throughout the state, and we expect it would be in a special election as well. And if the Republicans were to win that, it would make the state Senate 19-19, which would be a tie. The only way you can break a tie in the Michigan Senate is for the lieutenant governor to cast a tie-breaking vote. So we could have, we already have some interesting waters, and the roller coaster of politics continues in Lansing, and it could continue into the next election year as well. Wanted to provide a little bit of a legislative update. Appreciate Karen giving a preface of some of the things that we've done. Very proud to have worked with your legislators on securing $5 million that we've talked about before for the Chesterfield Interceptor project. It's not just as easy as saying that Senator Hertel said, oh, here's $5 million. So the process is long and arduous that we go through for this. And so Senator Hertel played a huge role, as did your state legislators in the House of Representatives. But there are committee hearings, there are meetings that we have with state appropriators, so the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, to talk about why it's important that specifically Chesterfield Township needs $5 million. And so we log lots of miles on our shoes going back and forth to the Capitol and legislative offices to have these conversations, not only with your legislators, because they know of the need here, but we have to convince the other 110 legislators in the House and 38 in the Senate that this is a good idea. And so we did that last term, and we're going to work toward potentially getting an additional appropriation this year. We've been glad to work with the Clerk's office. As you all know, the Proposition 2 passing, elections in Michigan have become a lot more complex and a lot more complicated, and there's a lot of questions that I know that the Clerk's office has, and it's not always easy to get answers from the Secretary of State. And so we've been able to work with them and provide them some answers to their questions. We contacted Secretary Benson's office, and we're able to get some detail on things that they were not able to get questions on, and we're happy to do that anytime and continue to work with any department on those issues. Some of the legislative things that we've touched on before, but I want to give you an update on the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund, which puts revenue sharing basically in a lockbox in perpetuity, has passed the Michigan House and it goes to the Michigan Senate. As you know, in local government, it's so important. You rely on revenue sharing very heavily, and you need to make sure that it's going to be there. Without having a revenue sharing trust fund, as we've seen in the past, when the economy is bad and the revenues aren't as high at the state, they will, one of the easiest places that they dip into is revenue sharing for local governments. And so by taking this and putting it in the revenue sharing trust fund, it will make sure that that money is only dedicated for local governments and revenues for their operations. Similarly, the Public Safety and Violence and Prevention Fund is a new fund, but would operate very similar to the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund. And these would be additional dollars that would come in. It's an earmark from the state sales tax, 1.5 of the 4% for the state sales tax, and it would be shelled out to every local jurisdiction based upon their violence and crime statistics. So this would be for new things for local jurisdictions for public safety and violence and prevention. So that is also passed the House and will be in the Michigan Senate when they return. Supervisor Kersten, as well as Karen, did mention the water affordability legislation that's out there. This is something that leaders I know in the Michigan Senate have been working on for some time. They've had many work group meetings, and they put together a package that their goal is to make, to help people that can't afford their water bills to be able to afford those. As part of that, there's a $2 fee per month per meter. That's part of this proposal. And I think that's what you've seen the real concern about, especially for those of you here that are already paying into a fund here in Macomb County that goes to help low-income individuals. And so we've talked with the supervisor, and we're going to be working with those folks to tell them that this doesn't work for Chesterfield Township, doesn't work for people in Macomb County, and we're going to try to see what we can do to amend it or to just oppose it all out. The next item is very important. It's not the sexiest issue in Lansing, but it's something that impacts your budget and will impact your budget if it passes. And so for years, companies like Comcast or other cable companies pay for the right to use your road right-of-ways. You have to maintain them. They utilize them to put their utilities in. And so they pay a franchise fee for that. And that franchise fee comes to the township for you to be able to operate and to maintain the road right-of-ways. I think it's several $100,000 for Chesterfield Township. There's a bill out there that will change the definition of video services, and they say it's to make sure that people that have Hulu and Netflix won't have to pay for these franchise fees. They should pay them now, they don't. But by changing this definition, what we're seeing is, I don't know how many folks still have cable boxes, but a lot of the big cable companies are moving to what? Streaming services, much like Netflix and Hulu. And so if these cable companies move to this streaming service, you will eventually lose every bit of revenue that you get from these franchise fees. And it is millions and millions of dollars for local government all across the state. Now, this flew through the House. We were able to stop it in the Michigan Senate, and we met with the Senate Majority Leader's office last week, and we're meeting with Senator Sam Singh, who chairs the Senate Oversight Committee, where this bill will be taken up next year. We don't believe that just being able to oppose it is going to fly. They want some sort of modernization of the act. And so we're going to be working together with Michigan Townships Association, the Michigan Municipal League, and legislators to come up with a modernization so that it will ensure that local government will continue to get the revenue that they need to maintain the road right-of-ways. And finally, for my last legislative update, there's another bill that would be detrimental to local governments. And it came out of the House Labor Committee. It sits on the House floor. And this bill would ensure that you would it would be a mandatory item of collective bargaining to talk about minimum staffing levels. So that could be for any of your collective bargaining units. So if it's police, fire, if it's any of your folks, treasurer, I don't know if you have union folks in your office, it would be for your folks, everybody in the township, you would have to have this as a mandatory subject of collective bargaining. So you can negotiate that now, 100% can. If you are forced to do it, you have to, every time there's an open contract, you have to have a discussion about minimum staffing levels. Where that becomes a problem is when you have PA 312, which is binding arbitration. You can get an arbitrator that will tell you, so it won't be a decision by the township and the board. It will be an arbitrator telling you, you need to increase staffing levels in, let's say, the police department by 20 officers. That could happen. If it does, that means you have to pay for it, and you have to figure out where you're going to come up with the budget to pay for it. And so the opposition to this is important so that you as a township can make the best decisions for your township and that it's not turned over to an arbitrator. And so we've been working collectively with, again, the Michigan Municipal League, the Michigan Townships Association to push back on this to make sure that that decision-making ability is here and that you can negotiate that on your own. And then just a quick what's next in Lansing coming up. As you know, the legislature ended early in December, but they'll be back in full force in January. The first thing that we'll be looking at is a consensus revenue estimating conference. That is an exercise that the nonpartisan House Fiscal Agency, Senate Fiscal Agency, and the State Budget Office go through every year to determine what they believe the revenues are going to be for the state of Michigan, and when they utilize that as a tool to set the budget. And so we'll get those numbers in early January or mid-January. And then we'll have the governor's State of the State address. We expect the State of the State address to be later in January, where the governor will lay out her vision for what she would like to accomplish with the budget and with policy. And then right after the State of the State address, we'll see the budget presentation by the governor. So she'll use the consensus revenue estimating figures and she'll put her budget together and present that to the legislature, and that's kind of the ceremonial kickoff season of the appropriations process. And we'll see the legislators go through the appropriations process to set the budget that they'll probably have done by June or July of next year. So that is my update. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Just to bring back in Adam, just so everybody knows, we're in touch with Adam on a weekly, almost daily basis on all these topics that he mentioned. And there's another one, the Land Division Act, that we're in conjunction with MTA discussion and where that legislation is going. That impacts this township greatly too in certain areas. So the return on investment for this service, obviously we worked well with Senator Hertel, and he was able to get us some community block grant dollars back into our community right off the bat. We are currently working on a similar plan for the coming years. We met with, again, Senator Hertel with the assistance of Adam and his group, and they continuously speak for Chesterfield in the Lansing circles. And as previously stated by someone, we have a great relationship with all of our elected state and federal officials. The mission here is just to keep that Chesterfield name resonating throughout the state always, and as he said, running back and forth between each legislator. So that part is invaluable. Any questions from the board? Questions from the board? Trustee Joseph.
More of a comment, Mr. Supervisor. The Midwest Strategies is a fine company, and they do great work, and they serve their clients well. I understood when this was brought to the board several years ago, you were appointed and you were interim, and there was not a lot of, I think as you said, it was difficult to reach out to somebody at the DNR or to get people in Lansing to pick up the phone. But you've been on the job 3 years. You have a staff that is equal to or larger than any supervisor in the history of the township. You have the benefit of lobbyists from the various organizations that we belong to, the Michigan Townships Association. We have 2 representatives on this board at SEMCOG. We have, I don't know Representative DeBoyer personally, but I believe I could call his office tomorrow and tell him who I am and what I'm interested in, and get some action from the representative of the people. The same with Senator Hertel. I don't know him personally. We're in different political parties, but I believe that any member of this board could call Senator Hertel. And so this idea of having a voice in Lansing, I thought the people already had a voice in Lansing. They elected their voices. And as I say, with the staff that you have and the available resources that are already in place through the process, the return on investment is just, again, I don't want to go back and forth. I just respectfully say that I think we'll have to agree to disagree on what can be accomplished with the existing resources that we have. And a lobbyist is again, I think we'll just probably go back and forth and agree to disagree. I think we can do it without, and I'm a no vote on this for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I'm not sure a large staff, just for you, there's 2 of us, Karen and I. I don't know large staff, if you want to.
Well, again, I was just going by the flow chart and the organizational chart you had. At one point, interns that were on your staff, and the supervisor's office was broken into 2 separate groups now. So I don't know who all the individuals that work for you, but my point is that you have resources available to you. I wasn't trying to pick a fight. I'm just simply saying that you have a number of available employees that represent a multitude of departments. They're as big or bigger than any supervisor we've had. And none of them had a lobbyist, is my point. So I wasn't taking issue with your staff, but everybody reports to you. And we have departments, whole departments that didn't exist, under previous supervisors. That was my point.
Let's just agree to disagree.
As I said.
Okay, any further questions? Treasurer Elliott.
Adam, could you tell us how that if we have an issue that is important to us, what is the process that you guys go through that for us on our behalf? Could you talk about that a little bit more, please?
Sure. So one of the things that we do that I think is important is we did it last month is we sat down with all the directors here and we listened to the things that they're working on. That helps educate us on things that are maybe projects or concerns that they have. And so as we do these directors meetings, we take lots of notes and we figure out if there's a parks issue, if we know of grant funding that would be appropriate for them to apply for. But if there's a specific issue and someone emails me, we work with that department or through the supervisor and his staff to make sure that we address those issues as best we can. We sit down and figure out exactly what the issue is and who to go to. So fortunately, as you can tell from the lack of hair and everything going gray, is I've worked in Lansing for a while. So I worked in the legislature and we have lots of contacts. And that's what's great about our team is we do actually work as a team. So we're bipartisan. Some of us worked on the Democratic side, some of us worked on the Republican side, and we have contacts that we can call right away. And so we have those. As an example, we had the Eagle director in our office last week. And I don't know if there's one department that local government has more problems with than Eagle. So being able to have his cell phone, be able to pick up the phone and call him directly on issues for Chesterfield is big. And we have the same thing with MDOT and all the departments in Lansing where we can call them. And so we try to assess what the actual issue is and how we can try to help you solve it.
So right now, some of the projects that are of big interest here is work on Gratiot, right, in which involves work on Gratiot 23 Mile, I-94. That involves MDOT, the county, right, feds.
Yes.
And then, so green space, as we see more development, residents are feeling more, are even more passionate than ever about making sure that we're taking good care of our green spaces and protecting our environment, working with, making sure that we get as much help cleaning up the environment. How are you going to help us if we go with this contract today? How can you directly impact those things that are very important to us?
Well, we take our cues from you all as a board. If you have a priority, it becomes our priority. And so I know that there have been a lot of issues and questions that you have with MDOT over the past year that I've been on board. And we've probably brought MDOT in probably 3 or 4 times to have discussions about various concerns with. I know that we're looking at and working with MDOT about making sure there's safe pedestrian crossways for people to get over various highways. And so that's one of the things that we did is put that together, and we found out there's a plan for it. So that's good that there's a plan for it. One of the things that we can do is work with legislators to see if we can find some additional money to give to MDOT to move that up the priority list so it's not 4 or 5 years down the road. So that's something we'll continue to work on. But the priorities all stem from you. And if you guys have a priority, we like to set an agenda for what the township wants to work on and prioritize those. And then that's what we do is we go out and as a team work on Chesterfield's behalf with your legislators and departments and regulators to make sure that we can accomplish those goals.
So if you're working with, say, and you're talking about, we've talked about extensively about having you're saying that pedestrian crossing somewhere over I-94 because the township is divided and you can't get from one side to the other, safely. So that is, I think, the one that you're mentioning that we've talked about extensively. So not only, and of course, I've said it to every legislator, anybody that will listen. I know that Brad has also done that. And so what is your role then? We keep saying it, but then what is the next step? How are you offering more value?
Yeah, so what we'll do is then, like I said, we will take that and we'll work with appropriators to see if we can get additional dollars to the department to move it up, because the department's going to have several year plans laid out. And so I think that one is, I have to rack my memory, but I think it's 4 or 5 years out that they're going to already plan to do that. And so our goal would be to try to push that up the priority list, and that always comes with money. And so it's finding dollars in the budget or the general fund to be able to then fund those items.
Thank you.
Trustee Vosper.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. And thank you, Adam, for the update. Appreciate it very much. I support this. I've always been in favor of having some kind of influence, whatever we can have in Lansing, Washington, wherever we need it to be. And I find this is a very effective, cost-effective way, too, because there's 10 people working for us, and we just pay a monthly fee for all that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Vosberg. One thing I will say is that we work very well with the Michigan Townships Association, and I think the reason why you've seen townships and cities engage government relations firms is because the Townships Association and the Michigan Municipal League work for everyone. They don't work for an individual jurisdiction. And so when you have individualized priorities and needs, MTA doesn't do that. That's why a lot of folks will engage us so that we can work on the things that are important to you.
Thank you. Trustee Anderson.
Just Adam, a good presentation. $144,000 over 3 years, it won't break the bank, but I'll tell you, actually, it's no reflection on what your function is in your agency. Get a perception that we don't have the expertise here at the township level to adequately represent our township at higher levels of government. And it seems like there are connections going back and forth between our elected officials here on up the food chain. Township majority gets into a multi-million-dollar sewer operation. It's going to be the residents, the stockholders, that'll pay for it. Board majority accepts a sewer line with $11 million of damage on it, and you know, you were able to get a few bucks there to offset it. But I think maybe I don't know. It's like the like the cavalry coming to the get the troopers out, and the war's over and we've lost. I think we got just a bigger picture. I think we got to live within a budget, and starting moving forward. And I'll leave it right there. I can't support it.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments? Any further comments? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item D. Deputy Nizza.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
No.
Trustee Joseph?
No.
Trustee DeMink?
Aye.
Item E.
Item E, approve a recommendation by supervisor to enter into an agreement with Macomb County Department of Roads to install an overhead lighted crosswalk sign, post-mounted rectangular rapid flashing beacons, along with a warning sign with a flashing bar beneath the sign that is activated when pushed by the pedestrian on Jefferson and Hooker in an amount not to exceed $50,000.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Trustee DeMink, supported by Treasurer Elliott. Karen, do you want to address this?
Yep.
This is a design request, right?
Yes. So in the last couple of years, we've had multiple residents contact the supervisor's office asking for some sort of crossing. This is in direct relation with the school crossing because there is a school right there. And so we contacted Macomb County because Macomb County and MDOT hold jurisdiction over all of our roads here in Chesterfield Township. And from there, they give us what they can do. And if you look at the screen, they gave us the option to have the overhead lighted crosswalk sign, post-mounted rectangular rapid flasher beacons, along with a warning sign with flashing bar beneath the sign that will be activated when pushed by a pedestrian. So it's not a traffic light, but they will be the beacons that you can activate by pressing them. And this was the only option that Macomb County gave us. So it, again, We are under jurisdiction of Macomb County with our roads, and so it is kind of up to them. However, they did let us know that if we wanted this, it would be a cost to the township.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Trustee Anderson.
I don't know if it's questions or not. The first speaker, I apologize, I didn't catch her name. I'm familiar with that intersection. I think we all are, on this side of the township. You have a control device at a stoplight at Sugar Bush, and down the other end of Jefferson, I think 23 Mile and Green Street is the next one. You have quite a stretch here. You've got Brandenburg Park, the paddle park, a school, a church, a lot of activity there, wide open places. I've had the opportunity to work at that school. It's an elementary school. I have no problem spending township money on this control device. As a matter of fact, I can recall in the past, in the 90s, it took a petition to put a stoplight, control light at Sugar Bush and Jefferson when the old high school was there because of the problems caused by that. I don't know what the county, well, the county, it's kind of figured the county say, you want to do something on our roads, you pay for it, because we're paying for a lot of the county things. But this is one I support 100%. I'd like to see us actually, I don't know what, to put an actual control device there. Stop sign, it could be, again, I don't know the expertise. It could be on a controlled time. If you go down that stretch here, you'll see school buses various points of the times of the day. They're not just at the dismissal elementary school. Children being dropped off from middle school, high school, whatever, along that. And there's constant traffic. Little children get conditioned to push a button and figure it's safe. I don't know, I'm looking out for that. I can't see why we couldn't pursue not only this, but go for a control device, or even if it's timed. We spend enough money on other things. I hear it'd be something. Why don't we use our ARPA money on this? This definitely benefits our residents, our kids, or anyone that, whether you're going to Brandenburg Park, Indy 500 up and down the street, or whatever. Anyhow, I'm for this device, and I wish we could do more. Thank you.
Down here.
Thank you. Trustee Domingue.
I support it. Hopefully we get the sign with the flashing lights. I've seen those in operation. It'll definitely warn people, and hopefully a lot of people will stop and let the pedestrians cross. But it's definitely needed there. The bike path during the summer is jam-packed all the way from Weber to Brandenburg and then into New Baltimore. I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad we're going this route. Thank you.
Any further? Any further? Just a couple of questions. This really is a no-brainer, not to cover it any more than what Trustee Anderson has already said, and to the residents that this is a county road. County road, when you call them and ask them for something, the first thing they say is, and it's not within our budget, and are you willing to pay for it? So that's what we're left with. As again pointed out, this is a no-brainer. This should happen. This should have happened years ago, and I think it'll be nothing but a positive for that area. Just on a side note too, we are working with the county to reconstruct Jefferson for the long term, and again, that's another long-term projection. And if you recall, a couple of months ago, we added lights along the Jefferson corridor, night lights. And the focus with working with the county is getting some sort of funds and money to reconstruct Jefferson from Hall Road all the way north to the city of New Baltimore, and include all those studies that have been mentioned. So, any further questions? Any further questions? A motion by Trustee Domingue, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item E. Deputy Nizza.
Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Vosburgh.
Aye.
Item F.
To approve a request to enter into an information technology support agreement with Porter & Black for the Township Municipal Office, DPW, Community Center, Brandenburg Park, and Pollard Park for 3 years at a cost of year one, $48,750 a quarter. Year two, $50,700 a quarter. Year three, $52,728 a quarter, beginning 1/1/2024.
Is there a motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support? Support. Trustee Vosburgh? Supporting Trustee Vosburgh. Again, Karen?
So our ask is to approve Porter and Black for the Municipal Office, DPW, Community Center, Brandenburg Park, and Pollard Park for 3 years. Porter and Black is a preferred vendor here with Chesterfield Township. They've worked with us for over 20 years. They currently provide IT for our public safety department. Because we are a government agency, the need to protect our residents' information and the information here at the township is very important. So to make sure that we have a IT company that is secure and confidential, I believe that that is a compelling reason to go with Porter and Black, and they are, again, a preferred vendor for 20-plus years. They have helped us out in numerous situations where our previous vendor has not been able to solve or resolve IT issues. There's a couple differences in the contract. They do not charge for mileage, which our previous vendor did. They did not sell or resell their products. And we had stopped using the previous vendor because they continuously wanted to sell us blocks of hours, which just made us spend more money. In Porter and Black, we've asked for their expertise in a couple different situations in the past couple of years where we were actually going to spend probably double on something that our previous vendor wanted to sell us. And Porter and Black, they were very honest up front, let us know that we did not need that service and we could go out on our own and get it. So I'm very confident with Porter and Black, and they have been nothing but fantastic. And like I said, confidentiality and security for the township is one of our top priorities.
Questions or comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I think all IT services would put at the top of their list confidentiality and the protection of their clients' electronic information. So that I think is a universal trait among all IT, I would hope. The question that I have, and I can't really take issue with any of the presentation regarding the quality work that Porter and Black has given the township. Simply, Mr. Supervisor, when we lay out administrative procedure orders, they are the guidelines for us. They're not written in stone. They are simply guidelines for us. But if they are the rules that we sort of govern ourselves by, and we go through a purchase of service with this magnitude, couldn't we include the reason for not following our APO? There are exceptions, and there are compelling reasons that allow us to forego a bid process. Could we have somebody speak to what those may be in this particular issue? I mean, I've from previous discussions with Porter and Black, when their issue came up with the public safety team, you indicated that we're kind of left a bit in the lurch from our previous vendor in that the service was not really, one, I heard affordable in terms of they were pitching us on blocks of service. So we're stuck in a lot of ways. That, of course, could be a compelling reason to, forego a bid process. But I just not entirely comfortable with just bypassing our APO without at least addressing some of those issues that make a bid process not required in this instance. And I'm wondering who on your team can address that.
I'll address that.
Thank you.
The exception was already mentioned in the document, and Karen stated it, why they're a preferred vendor. We have an experience with them. We have a long history with them in public safety. They've performed exceptionally well over the years. The previous vendor that we had also long-term here, there were what we saw as operational issues, and as I said previously, we're trying to slowly back them out as not to disrupt our network, along with rebuilding and reconstructing the network. This goes ultimately to the plan of keeping a single source vendor or hiring a single source vendor that we're very satisfied with. And again, my experience with them when they were at public safety and continued to be that these individuals had the interest in the township solely in their operation. They work closely with us, and those exceptions are within the packet and have been highlighted. I don't want to say anything disparaging about the company that is no longer here. They were a great company. They served us well for the period of time, but we're going in a new direction, and we're encompassing broad platforms throughout the township that are township-wide, not just public safety. So the exceptions are in there. They've been discussed. We're very satisfied with them. To your point of why aren't we going out for bid, there is a plan to go out for a bid on every service contract in the coming years, but at this point in time and where we were left with, without a very clear direction of services here, we chose to stay with them because of who they are and what they provide us. What did I miss?
I guess nothing, and I don't want to get tied up in semantics because we'll go down a rabbit hole, but the purchase policy 1.4, I understood as you responded to the question that you felt. I guess maybe to make it clear, not so much for me, but we have a lot of residents that email us and they go, what about our APO, and what about our APO, and what about our APO? And I think maybe in the executive summary when it's presented, I heard bits and pieces over the last two meetings, what I could cobble together to be some compelling reasons, but I think maybe just in the presentation, the goods and services that are being procured clearly exceed the dollar amount that requires a bid. And so maybe just right in the executive summary that we are asking, as the APO 1.4 suggests, that the department head is perfectly capable of making that request, to simply say we would ask to forego the bid process for the following reasons, and just articulate that, and then it makes it very clear. You're right, and in the presentation there were a number of issues raised, preferred vendor, the current status of our previous vendor, and all of those things. I think it just could have been a little bit more clear to eradicate and eliminate any questions about why are you foregoing your bid process, to just start off the executive summary with this procurement service exceeds the dollar amount, it requires a bid, and this is why we think we shouldn't go out for a bid, and that would satisfy, I think, a lot of people, including this end of the board. Because when you say we, there's some argument to who the we is, and we are not always in those meetings, and we don't see, as we talked about at the last meeting, when you talk about a QBS process, that isn't a QBS process and so forth, that we could tighten up our presentation and just cover 1.4 very easily just by citing the compelling reasons, and that again, probably semantics. At the end of the day, Porter & Black is a quality vendor, and they have provided great service. And not to disparage any other vendors, but whenever I've personally been in a situation where I needed some IT help, it was always Porter & Black that was there to assist. So I'm confident that the township's needs are met, IT by Porter & Black, but keeping with the rules that we use to govern ourselves, I think we could be a little bit more clear. And again, not to go down a rabbit hole, just constructive, feedback. Thank you.
What I'll offer to you again is if you don't like the wording or verbiage that comes out in the agenda review, just reach out, send us an email, and tell us what clarity you'd like to see, and we'll definitely do it for you. Thank you. Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify, so the contract is for year one, $48,750 per quarter, which would be $195,000 for the year in year one.
That's correct.
Okay. And so when you figured this out, the last 2 years, we paid the previous vendor $463 and some change, $463,362. And so that was for the past 2 years. And it averages out about $30-some thousand a year in savings compared to what we paid the previous vendor. Is that how you were figuring it?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
approximately like 36,000.
Right. And that comes, I'm assuming, through some economies of scale by being able to, they are able to be, since they're here already in the township, right? Is that?
Yep.
Yep,
They'll
how that
have staff on site 56
Mm-hmm.
hours per week, 24/7 network monitoring, after hours email and phone support, and on-site emergency services.
Right. And so over the last year or so, there has been, as we've transitioned to the BSNA cloud, and we've had some server upgrades and changes and different things. I want to say, you guys are here, Porter and Black is here. Thank you so much for the support you've provided the township over the last year as we've done some of these things where the previous vendor wasn't available or was, they had only contracted maybe one person and we needed a couple of more. And I know that you guys have come and done that. And I want to thank you also, Karen, for the work that you've done in researching all of this and helping us make that transition. It has been very important to the staff here. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10F. Clerk Nizza.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Demink?
Aye.
And Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 10G, when you're ready.
Approve a request by Supervisor Kersten. Excuse me. Approve a request by Supervisor Kersten to enter into a contract with DTE to install a new streetlight at 21 Mile Road in Briarfield at a one-time cost of $1,664.91 and a monthly charge of $43.73.
So moved. Trustee
Support.
Demink, supported by
Support.
Treasurer Elliott. Again, this is on the agenda just because of the reoccurring cost, and we've done this similar while I've been here. We could have just approved it because it is under the amount, but the reoccurring $43.73 charge. This is a growing trend that our office, Karen, I'm not stealing it from you, but citizens calling, wanting street lighting and enhancements. And it's a never-ending battle. One of the first things we have to do is we reach out to DT and see what is there, what is capable, and what's reasonable. So there's a lot of work that Karen does behind the scenes with DT. So Karen, the floor is yours.
This particular intersection, again, we got numerous complaints on it, and then with the help of Treasurer Elliott, she pulled some SIMCOG data for us. And it actually is, Gratiot and 21 is actually our #1 ranked intersection for crashes. So when we kind of got that data, and this is just, this light would be just east of 21 and Gratiot. And it's a light, not a traffic light, just to clarify. We thought that, wow, we have these complaints from these residents, and that's a high crash intersection. This would be great and beneficial for more lighting on 21 Mile Road. It helped, we had some data from SIMCOG, we had the residents' input, we contacted DTE, they said, similar, that yes, it would be a great enhancement. So we got a quote, we brought it, and now we're bringing it to you guys.
Thank you. Any questions? Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify the information. So Gratiot and 21 Mile within Chesterfield Township has been ranked now as under high-frequency intersection crash rankings. 21 in Gratiot is now the #1. 23 in Gratiot is our #2. That's within Chesterfield. Now, within the county, 21 in Gratiot is the #26 ranking, and within the region it's 98. 23 in Gratiot is number 2 within Chesterfield, number 39 within the county, and number 149 within the region. And I just want to make sure so that people are very clear on that. And I printed up, I think about 15 copies of that, and I'll make them available for everybody here so you can, I think it's important. But as far as this here, as I think what Karen is getting to, is I'm in support of course, bringing more lighting and safety for pedestrians within the township, and this is part of that plan. Thank you.
Trustee Domingue.
I think it's a great idea. The road dips down there when it just gets east of Gratiot. Also, there's a lot of people that get off the SMART bus there at 21 in Gratiot and walk eastbound on 21 over 94. A lot of them work at the industrial park or at Welder and Presses because there's always people walking alongside the roadway there. So it gives a little more light. And because I know there's some lights down by Brandenburg and once you get closer to 94, but just a little more illumination, especially because a lot of those people are catching the early morning bus and they're walking to work early in the morning under darkness hours and going back toward Gratiot to catch the bus in later evening hours.
And I'm just going to follow up on that, to your point, and some of the conversations that we've had with both MDOT and, again, orchestrated by the lobbyists and some of the federal highway people is, as was previously stated, we have no pedestrian walkways over the freeway. So when SMART runs up Gratiot and makes their drops, the Welders and Presses, Anchor Bay Packaging, all of those pedestrians then turn to the roads and walk. So the GAP program sidewalk is key there. Working with MDOT, we had a conversation today with MDOT about expanding walkways over the overpasses. The only one that is in realistic design at this point, it was supposed to happen in 2025. It's moving to 2026 is the 23-mile road. 21-mile road is a growing concern, and this is just a small step in trying to at least make it a little bit safer. So, any further comments from the board? Any further comments from the board? I have a motion by Trustee Domingue, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item 10G. Deputy Nizza.
Trustee Domingue?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
And Trustee Vosper.
Aye.
Item 11, addendums. There are no addendums. Item 12, public comments. There is a 3-minute time limit for the public to speak. If you would, please state your name. Public comments? Public comments?
Everybody's bashful tonight. First of all, on all these contracts, I don't care if it's HVAC or building renovations, the project only winds up being a quality event if the expectations of the manager are carried out the way they should be. I still have my concerns. We spend $4,000 a month on PR, and we wouldn't spend $1,800 a month to save on electric bills, have an environment where the workers work efficiently, the cost of electricity for all the heaters, the gas we spent in the summer nights, all that had to add up to something, and we didn't make the decision to fix it right way back when. So, like I said, I'm still doubtful. The other thing is if you look at the budget, there's a lot of mistakes in the budget. There's a statement in there that we are strong fund balance, we're 125%. Well, we got $9.4 million in the general fund balance, and at 125%, it's over $12 million. So that statement's no good. There's another one in there about for many, many years, we haven't raised the sewer and water rates. We haven't passed on the wholesale costs, which is incorrect. In 2016, it was voted down by the board because it was a percentage increase that added $1.2 million more to the revenue than was required to cover the increase. But the 2016 wholesale cost was rolled up into the 217 wholesale increase. In the other year that it wasn't, of the many years, was the fact that there was COVID and Great Lakes Water no longer was going to charge the township for Highland Park debt. So there was no increase, and that's why there was no increase. And it insinuates that the township's going broke because of that. It's not true. It's not a truth. And the other thing is, if you do the math and you look at the AEW presentation for the cost of water and what the commodities in there and what the RTS costs, we're collecting $2.3 million every year in depreciation, and you can't account for it. You can't account for it. And before HRC comes to the township with water rate increases, they better read some case law from Bloomfield Hills, because there's a little couple of paragraphs in there where money's been diverted from the sewer and water to the general fund, and that's one of the reasons why Bloomfield Hill lost.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not done. Am my 3 minutes up? Yeah, thank you.
Time's up. Yep.
If I can, Mike Rayner again, Jack Grove Lane. Just to follow up on this comment, just kind of reminds me of my main concern here, and I've voiced it before. We call these comment opportunities. Most of the comments are actually questions rather than comments. And we never have answers to the questions. So maybe I don't know the protocol or the decorum of meetings like this, but I mean, it seems to me it should be more of a Q&A. I mean, if you have a legitimate question in the form of a comment, it should be answered. So I think perhaps if it's not appropriate to do it at the time, which I kind of understand, then maybe in the follow-up meeting, then we say, okay, and as a follow-up to the comments / questions that were asked, these are the answers to those concerns. Instead, I continue to see frustration because we make these comments / questions and they just go, you know, up into the cloud somewhere. So I think that's kind of crazy. I also want to mention once again 22 Mile Road, which most of that is in Chesterfield. I know the fire department happens to be right there, and the fire department enters that dangerous intersection. So I'll take it up with Macomb. I would think that someone in Chesterfield would want to take it up with Macomb, because I know the fire engine goes up in that direction sometimes to enter the rest of Chesterfield Township. So I think we really are underestimating how important that is. The other thing is, too, is if you're going east, if you're going east on 22 and you approach the railroad tracks, you go over there on the left-hand side and you go on the wrong side of the street to cover it, to cross it, because if you don't, you're going to destroy your car. So just another aside. You go up and down, you'll see it. Everybody that knows the street goes over there and they go on the opposite side of the street. The other thing, and this is probably a smart bus issue, the northbound bus traffic, they get off not really across the street from the south side shelter, but in that same area, which is quite a distance from the 23 Gratiot interchange. So to be able to walk all the way down there and walk across and walk back, which is really pretty far, we jaywalk instead. So I know we shouldn't do that, but we do it. So I think we need the same kind of lighting that was mentioned before, the lit crosswalk or whatever. Now that could be a smart question for SMART, and we may not care because they're not really Chesterfield citizens anyway. They're from Detroit, you know, they work in those slave wage jobs, you know, west of Gratiot. So anyway, I think we really have to consider the safety on both 22 and on Gratiot. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Further comments?
Joe Kadich, I'd like to continue where I started originally. Gets back to the budget. I asked questions on where the grants are going to be allocated in the budget. You said you'd answer during the budget meeting. You didn't. Then I find out afterward, you were at the Parks and Rec planning meeting and told them you were going to use the ARPA funds to buy the school. My problem with that is I asked a question about where the money and the grant was going to be allocated because you've just about destroyed the sewer and water system in this township. You've taken money out of the depreciation that was supposed to be for upgrading things. We had that issue when we had the flood. You went into hiding for I don't know how many weeks. You didn't talk to anybody. Some of the members put together, talked to the township people that were concerned, had flooding damage. You weren't there. You never brought it up afterwards. You've created a big problem here. Now, I think it would behoove you at least to take some of that money from that grant and put it back in, at least what happened on Jefferson. The DeMeek fire, pumping station failed. I don't know whether the lift pumps failed too. Something happened there, and either the lift pumps failed and couldn't handle it, or the flooding from the DeMeek station got into the sanitary sewers somehow. If it did, then that's got to be fixed. You've done nothing about that. I don't know where in the hell you think your responsibility lies in buying a school rather than owning up to the people that pay the money for the sewer and water in this township. You've walked away from it. It's sad. It's more than sad, it's almost criminal. One other thing I'd like to say, if I've got the time, is when listening to the representative for the lobby group here, he's first talked about Republicans, how many were going to change in the Senate and the House. The same thing is going to happen in the federal government. There's always a problem between Republicans and Democrats. Who's going to win? Now, you got all Republicans on the board here, and we still aren't winning. And the problem is, like everybody says, you want to talk to us, but you don't want to listen. You don't want to listen because you can't answer what questions we have. You don't want to be responsible for it. I hope to help people recognize this. It's a good way of controlling what you're doing and to take things away from you, but somehow you're going to end up owning up to all of this. I hope it's sooner than later.
Janice Young. I feel like I've been doing sort of an AA program. I've been hitting 90 meetings in 90 days. I've been to every planning meeting, Parks and Recs, library. I've hit them all. The most interesting one was probably the Parks and Rec meeting, which I did video record when the supervisor gave his report. I did catch on the minutes that he was not listed as attending the meeting, and there was nothing listed that he even spoke there. So I don't know how residents would generally even know that you were there doing that, because those meetings are not recorded, which I'm requesting right now that they are recorded. So at the meeting, Sean Elliott called everybody here names. He was hurling insults at all of us. He referred to us as the naysayers, the soapbox crowd, the same old crew, we don't want to spend, the board's not transparent, stuff like that, and the Karens of the group. That's who you appointed to our Parks and Rec department. I did ask in an email to Ms. Anderson that he apologizes at the next Parks and Rec meeting, and I think it would be more appropriate for him to come here and apologize to everybody here in person. I do want to speak to the character of a couple gentlemen in this room. I've had some personal issues going on this year, and Mr. Speaker recognized that perhaps I had something going on and reached out to me. And he said he could help me, and he has tried. And Mr. Rayner has also attempted to help me. I didn't ask for their help. They recognized that I had an issue, and they stepped forward to do that. And that's who Mr. Elliott is calling the Karens of the group and the naysayers. He's wrong, and he needs to apologize. I would also like to ask that Alan Christ steps down from his role in the commission. During the supervisor's department report at that meeting regarding the purchase and development of Sugar Bush Elementary, he stated that he would personally benefit from the township purchasing that property as it directly connects to and impacts his property. He stands to financially gain from this, which I believe skews his decision-making ability, and the supervisor said nothing to him during this comments. I also asked that Kyle Hecht step down from the commission. At the same meeting, he asked to have the Jefferson Avenue pathway extended to the street he lives on, which is Harbor Drive. The supervisor commented, and I can quote, "That's something we can take a look at. That is clearly favoritism and should not be tolerated." And on that note, I would like to ask that the supervisor recuse himself from voting on anything related to that pathway or to Sugar Bush Elementary purchase, as his judgment is clearly skewed, swayed, and imparts favoritism to the personal requests of 2 commission members that he appointed, at least one, I know for sure, maybe even both of them. You know what, I'm gonna leave it at that for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
John Speaker, Chesterfield Township. I want to thank Janice, but, you know, I try to reach out and help any resident that I can help in the community, because, you know, I look at it, we're all in this together, we're one community, and, you know, we should try to help each other. That's what it's all about, and that's how I was raised, and I will continue doing that. Getting back to what was discussed tonight, I do have an issue with using the ARPA money in discussion to purchase the Sugar Bush Elementary. Again, you know, Supervisor Kersten, you said you were going to have a meeting. You never gave specifics on when you were going to have this meeting, but the ARPA money is the residents' money. It's our money. The residents need to tell you where we want that money spent. And to spend ARPA money on a 50-year-old dilapidated building that even yourself said may require millions of dollars in repair is, in my opinion, insanity to do that with the residents' money. I mean, the residents in this township want lighting, street lighting, they want sidewalks, and for crying out loud, they want a Gratiot corridor to be proud of and cleaned. I mean, I want to thank Mr. Rayner. Mr. Rayner is, you know, he's a dedicated, devoted resident in this community. You know, whether I'm going to work or I'm coming home, Mr. Rayner's out there cleaning the bus stops, picking up the trash, and making this community look great. You know why he does that? Because he's proud of this community. He cares about this community. He loves this community. I've yet to see one of our township vehicles, and maybe they have, but I haven't seen it, and Mr. Rayner hasn't said anything to me, pull over and help Mr. Rayner. How about if we assign somebody on a daily basis to go up and down and help Mr. Rayner? I think that would be a great asset and a great use of our funds in this community. And just to address the silliness that was addressed at the last township meeting, I gave an approximate ballpark on, you know, what your assistant, Karen Garby, makes, approximately $93,000. When I made the $93,000 comment, I took in her almost $75,000 salary and her, you know, Blue Cross, her insurance, her vision, her dental, and the whole package deal. So when you put the whole package deal in, my numbers are pretty close to what I said they were. Mr. Demink, you know, I'm sorry that I'm keeping you up past your bedtime. You look pretty tired there, but there was nothing said. You know, you should speak on what you've done for the residents in the last 20 years instead of attacking people. You're good at attacking people. And then the last thing is I'm not happy with the GFL contract.
Mike Orton, 50393 Bauer. I'm relaying a message put on from the Community People and Places group. And it says, a person is wondering what they are building behind Henry Ford Clinic on 23 Mile. Just wanted to put it out there because a lot of people had questions about that, and there was a lot of confusion on that. So if we can get an answer on that tonight, that would be great. Aside from that, One of the things I wanted to address was this right here, this limit right here. I'm looking, I got 2 minutes and 25 seconds left on here. You know, before a few months ago, we never had the issues regarding our time limits here on the board, in answering these types of things. And 3 minutes is not enough time. I've had to cite this several times and have to waste more of my time that we have limited around on here to constantly complain about this. Why is it that 5 minutes can't be the time limit? Back to what it was before. How long was that in effect for? Why is it that we have to settle for 3 minutes? Why is it that you cannot change it back to 5 minutes? I'm not saying on every issue, just simply for this, just for the end. Why can't we go back to 5 minutes? It's a lot easier to address our concerns or anything else because the second it hits 0, the supervisor cuts off anybody mid-sentence. And that doesn't even let them finish for 5 more seconds. That causes a lot of distrust. And this comes to what the big difference between everybody up there and everybody down here comes about. I can see someone like Mr. LaFata, who earns the trust of the public by constantly writing in The Voice. I see the trust from the community with Ms. Young because she constantly informs the rest of the public via social media on the ongoings of these meetings. I see Mr. Rayner constantly being out there cleaning up the community almost every day. And I try to help him the few times I see him pass there, but I know for certain he is out there cleaning up. And it's the difference between showing results and just complaining. And unfortunately, in this society, we have so much complaints going around, but every time someone tries to be proactive, a problem solver, creating the solutions, anything to do something to solve our problems, it is just met with more complaints. You know, you look back in the past, whether it be during times of like the Great Depression or World War II or the turbulence of the 1960s or anything of that nature, it just seemed like there was always some form of optimism to get us through the worst eras because we had good leadership, we had people representative of certain forms of governance, and here we do not have that in this township. And that needs to change. Thank you before I get cut off now.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Any further comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board. Trustee Joseph, I'll start with you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'll just kind of go down as quickly as I can. First presenter during public comments. I don't like to call you by your first name. It seems disrespectful, but I didn't hear your last name. And Allison, I really appreciated your comments. It's tough to get up and speak in front of a crowd, and you composed yourself very well and articulated a concern that you had, and I appreciated your comments very much. Mr. Kadich, I knew your frustration when you got to the podium. Unfortunately, the place at the point in the meeting that you were trying to make your point wasn't allowable, and because those were public comments as it relates to tonight's agenda item. And I tried to assist, and Supervisor had it, but you know what was also going on here, which you couldn't hear in the audience, is that there's screams from the end of the board, cut off his mic, cut off his mic, and that's just creates more contentiousness. And I think Mr. Wharton, in his closing comments, you know, pointed to some of the problems that I think we have, which are when we don't answer questions, and then we invite people to send us an email or things like that, and then we respond to the email with, oh, I can't give you that, you have to submit a FOIA. It just creates more and more frustration, and openness is the key. And it's not just openness with people that you agree with. It's with all residents that take the time out of their day to come to a meeting. And while we're talking about coming to a meeting, there's a lot of back and forth. Ms. Young, you had some back and forth with an individual who emailed the board tonight, and he wanted Clerk Berry to read his public comment. And the individual's name is Brandon Nalband. And I've known Brandon, I don't know him individually personally, but we haven't always agreed on things, but I respect him and his viewpoints. They're usually very well thought out. He's articulate, and he's polite, even when he disagrees with you or he's frustrated with you. So I do respect his point, which is there are a number of residents who don't come to board meetings but are very engaged, and he is certainly one of those. Whether you agree with him, me, the supervisor, or not, being referred to as a Karen and a naysayer, I was on vacation last week. I try to take my vacations in between board meetings to not miss board meetings, and I did see part of it. I didn't watch it all, to be honest, with the presentation the supervisor made at the Parks and Rec Commission, and I was a little concerned about the presentation that, you know, we're going to buy the building in January, because I thought that's what we did here, was deliberate on the people's money. But apparently it seems to be a foregone conclusion, not only the votes, but how we were going to buy it, which was troubling because, as another presenter pointed out, we were supposed to have a public hearing on the ARPA money, and that hasn't happened. And I think there are a number of very wise decisions that could be reached with the ARPA money, particularly as it relates to storm sewers and enhancing some of the things that would keep 2,000-year rain events that occurred within a month of one another from happening again. But if you roll the dice and you say, when's the next 1,000-year rain event going to happen, I guess you see that it's not any longer a pressing issue, and that's frustrating, because I would like to have a discussion about public hearing about ARPA money and sidewalks and street lights and some of the things that people really desperately want. But I would just say, in spite of all of the frustration, I don't see anybody in the audience or anybody at home as a naysayer or a Karen or anything like that. And that doesn't require you to agree with me. And Mr. Wharton, you're right. I think the constriction of time for people to speak just exacerbates a problem. And I wish we could have a more open dialogue along the lines of a questions asked, questions answered type format from your elected officials. It seems like a more appropriate thing to do. But again, I'm appreciative of all the residents that come forward, that watch, that email, that get on social media and have constructive feedback. So hopefully that continues, and appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Anderson.
Well, first thing, irregardless of their merit, in an advance apology to the math majors out there, tonight was about a $609,000 night that was spent by local government. I'll keep this under my 3 minutes. Mr. Rayner, you and others, you brought up some good points. You asked questions of your officials about your government. You don't get the answers. There was a time Trustee Joseph would do a tremendous job going through the agenda and giving solid responses to the questions that were asked or issues that were on there. I guess maybe some folks figured that he ruffled feathers at certain times, so in the spirit of a business meeting, we too are restricted to 3 minutes. Mr. Kadich, you brought up an issue of partisan politics to a degree. I don't know if I don't want to be wrong on that. I keep hearing, I've always had a pet peeve about this board going back several boards. It's the board did this, the board did that. No, it's the board majority. And I've had to talk with a couple of you. It's the board majority, not the entire board. So irregardless of what we have after our names, R's, D's, I's, this is not a lockstep. There are some individual voices here. I guess I'll try to leave this with a very positive note. Congratulations to our newest officer, Jordyn Swinkowski. Another TAR has made it on our police department. I'm proud to read that name and see her on a job, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Trustee Domingue.
Also, I'd like to congratulate our new officer, Jordyn, and wish you safety and best in your new career. And Mr. Speaker, thank you for the kind comments, and may God bless you and forgive you.
Trustee Vosper.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have 2 items tonight. One is a woman who lives by the Salt River Nature Center has kept a record of all the birds that she has heard or seen flying through the nature center or near her house in the neighborhood of that. and there's 100 of them listed on here. You see some of them just by looking herself, and then she also uses a Merlin phone app. Very interesting to me that she took the time to do all of this. So we have a lot of beautiful birds and interesting things that we can see in that nature center, and I'm sure they're throughout the township. And then the second thing is I get a phone call from someone who lives on D.W. Seaton Drive, which is a street runs north and south from 23 to 24 Mile. Wanted to know, because I'm affiliated with the Historical Society, did I know who D.W. Seaton is? I do not know. I checked with somebody here in our assessing department who's been here for years and years and seems to know a lot of that trivia type stuff, but does not know. So I'm asking if anyone listening tonight knows who Mr. or Mrs. D.W. Seaton is, if they could contact me through the township. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you. Congratulations to Jordyn Swinkowski. That's a great story about how one of our own local students grew up here in the township and is now serving. I also want to thank the kids who came out from Carcanord. That was a wonderful time today that they came and they sang Christmas carols to the township employees, and then were able to take a bag full of goodies back with them. The crash rankings that I referred to are back on the table there, and if you want to look into more of that data, you can find it on the SEMCOG website. One of the things about questions, I always want to bring up, I know that we hear Clerk Barry constantly read this statement about the consent agenda, but I just want to kind of remind you that the bill run is on the consent agenda, and it does say all items on the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. So there's no separate discussion of the items. And I know that sometimes when we are all here, we hear her saying that over and over, and I don't know that we're actually listening to the words. So a lot of times when people are asking questions about the bill run, they're not getting the answers because we have to pull them off in order to answer them today during a board meeting. So if you have a question, you see it on the agenda, a bill run question on the agenda, that would be a good time to send an email to, say, the finance director or a citizen's request to get that answer before the board meeting. And the finance department does have a process that they put everything through on the bill run. I do respect not liking to be called names. It takes us all down to the wrong level, and so, and I also respect the fact that people do call names and they don't apologize, and I understand how that is upsetting and frustrating, and maybe today we can start a new trend where we won't call names and there won't be an apology needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a few quick topics I would have covered. From the very first day of discussion with the school and subsequent following, the ARPA funds have always been a consideration. Ms. Young, I'm not worried about you videotaping me, and there's nothing in there that concerns me. I didn't say anything inappropriate. Your twist of that I had it in the barrel, I think I said I was never confident on any vote in the same video. So your context and what your impression of is not accurate. There was nothing derogatory said in that entire meeting, and I'm sorry if you took it personal, but there was generalized speaking only. And keep in mind that those are volunteer individuals that participate in those boards. Speaking to the rain event and investments in and trying to find solutions of the rain event that we suffered, again, that is underway, has been underway. There have been several meetings on it. We've partnered with the drain commissioner to try and fix the county drains. We've funneled money to them to fix it. But one of the issues historically is this township took on retention ponds that are 30, 40, 50 plus years old that have only been mowed and have not probably properly been maintained. We don't know. We're working on that. Each detention or retention pond has a separate resolution that includes an SAD for the said subdivision, and the legalities of what we can and can't do there beyond maintenance is being studied and researched, and we'll present that in the coming months once we're very confident moving forward. We are also looking for a flood mitigation plan through an engineering service that will help our residents avoid those. One of the subdivisions that was affected greatly by the flooding has a pipe that's probably 300 feet underground and in 30-plus years has never even been inspected. So that could lead to one of the problems. Again, we're looking into that and to see what extent we need to go to. Again, Mr. Rayner, Macomb Township is 22 and Fairchild. Once you pass Paul and Ranch Drive, you are in Macomb Township. And I can tell you right now, they're gonna do the same thing they want in Macomb Township. They want money, out of our jurisdiction. Can't help you there. Mr. Kadich, Vicky did address your question on the budget. The 401 account has been set up. And to your comments of I've destroyed the township or whatever you're referencing, destroyed, in hiding, I'm here. You just don't like the answers I give you, and I will make it very clear to you the Domingue pump station and any pump station along Gratiot or Jefferson did not fail. You keep coming to the podium with that narrative, and I'm sorry your basement flooded, but it was not the result of the township's pumping stations, and Domingue Pump Station isn't even in your drainage district. So we can clear that up, and obviously you file a claim, and that'll go through the process. And good luck. The comments about I got time? Time's up. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. There are no closed sessions tonight. I will take a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Trustee Domingue. Supported by Elliott at 9:33. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.